We must never surrender to evil and corruption. Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of people. Hello, John. We're back once again.
Hello, Martin. We are back for another episode in our new series on corruption, and what a week, Martin. We've been doing this. We've been doing in the interest of the people since 2019, and obviously you and I started doing videos together in 2018. But this past week, we reached a number of milestones, and a lot of some of our audience got a little bit confused with some of the big events of what happened last week with the pedophile tape, and so we're here to tell people what's happened last week and where do we go in terms of going forward.
Yeah, and I just want to underscore, John, that to my mind, getting a large number of views or reactions is not really what this is about on its own. This is about highlighting issues and rooting change. So to my mind, we will be successful if, in fact, what we're able to do is to bring stuff to light that should have been never hidden, and also make sure that people understand what is really, really going on. To me, this is a really important part of the agenda.
Martin, in terms of what happened last week, so the big thing that happened is we published the pedophile tape. So basically, I had said, I think in our second last program, and the program that was published last week, that I had exhausted all political and legal options, and it was either I, go into the corner and just hide with the tape, or I, break the legal agreement with the ABC and put it out there. And so that's what we did, and we were banned from by YouTube, and that's probably the first. Well, I mean, we have had a couple of episodes in the past that's been banned, but this one got banned after being playing for a few hours, and so then we went ahead and published it elsewhere. So Martin, just to bring our audience up to speed, so last Sunday, or 2 Sundays ago, recording here on Monday, but 2 Sundays ago, I made a public announcement on Twitter that we would publish the tape at 5 p.m. on the Monday, the 13th of October, 2025. And if we put up slide 1, we can just show the tweet that I had put up. And I basically, I mean, some people said, well, why are you giving people so much notice? It was to ensure that there was enough critical mass and people sort of knew that something was about to happen. And so I had put this tweet out, made a declaration. A lot of people had saw it on the Sunday and Monday morning, and obviously it was spreading around that the so-called pedophile tape was about to be released. And Martin, just before we came on air, 2 episodes ago, when we talked about the letter that I had received from the minister's department, there was a comment that someone had left on our YouTube channel saying that our whole story was fake. We were being malicious and defamatory, and this viewer said that they had reported me to the ABC and to the Albanese government. So interesting that someone would think that I'm engaging in fake material, but obviously now people know that the episode or the tape itself, that is not fake at all.
Absolutely. It's real and horrible, but real, unfortunately. And it really does underscore that for the last 50 years or so, people have been trying to bury something which just won't disappear.
Indeed. Now, Martin, my announcement on 2 Sundays ago got quite a bit of buzz around, and including one person in the media. So Stephen Gibbs from the Daily Mail Australia just thought this was a very unique and interesting story, so wanted to report about it. And Martin, if we put slide 2 up, so there was an article that was written on the Monday about my decision to publish the tape, and the title is "Average Aussie Defies the ABC in Extraordinary Action and Publishes Revolting Controversial Segment from 50 years ago that still shocks today." So we obviously got some mainstream media coverage, and that obviously gave some credibility to the story, and it obviously gave it some more attention as well. And Martin, now it's important that we sort of talk about what happened on that, like in terms of what happened on the 2 weekends ago, and then what happened on the Monday. So Martin, I think on Saturday night, you and I recorded our 5-minute introduction. I left it to you to do the post-production. We had uploaded it into YouTube, and we had pre-programmed for 5 o'clock on Monday, consistent with with what I had publicly declared. Now, throughout all of Monday, I had heard nothing from the ABC. And then at 4:58 p.m., with 120 seconds left to go on the clock, well, here's the truth. I was in the car driving to pick up one of my children from their dance class, and you were literally in the UK walking your dogs because it was your morning. So neither you nor I were next to our computers. And yet at 4:58, I received a text message from a lawyer at the ABC directing me to a email that they had sent, and basically they made a series of statements and a particular threat, and they basically expected me to acquiesce to their demands with 120 seconds with 120 seconds left to go on the clock, and the practicality of it was that there was just no way to respond. I didn't because I was driving. I didn't have the capacity to even read the email with 120 seconds left to go. So, Martin, obviously, there's been some media coverage about the legal threat that was made against me by the ABC. So let's go to slide 3. And in slide 3, this is the guts of the email. It says, "quote Publication of the pedophile tape would amount to a breach of the ABC's copyright. The ABC owns the copyright in the material and does not authorize you to publish it. We also note that upon being provided this material by the ABC, you signed the attached personal use form, which included an undertaking not to include the material in any further publications or to communicate it to the public by any means, and to use it for personal viewing only in a private setting. Breach of this undertaking and/or of the ABC's copyright would be a very serious matter. The ABC will rely on this correspondence on the question of costs and/or damages should it be necessary for the ABC to seek injunctive relief if you proceed with publication despite the above matters." So this was the legal threat that the ABC sent to me by 4:58 last Monday. Now, Martin, a couple of things to say about this. So, if the ABC was serious about not having this material released to the public, they could have communicated to me well in advance of 4:58 p.m. So the fact that they left it to the last minute says to me that I didn't think they were particularly serious. Now, when they talk about injunctive relief, I mean, in terms of seeking a court order not to publish, if they were serious about that, they could have gone to the court with an emergency application on Monday morning last and informed me that this is now before the court. Don't do anything, otherwise I could be in contempt of court. So they obviously never went and got an injunction. They never attempted to go to court, and yet we have this lingering threat that is still looming until today. So what I can say to the audience is that after this email, and we went ahead with publication, despite the legal threats of the ABC has yet to serve me any legal documents. So I don't know what's going to happen next. We could go to court. We may not go to court. It's a lingering threat out there in the ether. But the important point, Martin, is that because this is such a important topic, and Martin, just on the issue of copyright. So yes, the ABC does have the copyright, but we said that our intention to release the tape was in the public interest. We had no commercial desire to monetize the video or to make any money from it. The ABC itself has said that the material doesn't meet editorial standards, and they were never going to use it again. So there's no commercial dispute in the sense that the ABC says they can lose money because we breached their copyright. So this was nothing to do with money or with intellectual property. This was all about concealing the truth from the public. And that's why I thought that having asked the ABC for permission to inform the public, and they said no, having gone to the Minister for Communication, Annika Wells, and said, this is such an important national topic that truth and transparency is the best way to advance the topic. And I want you, Minister, to intervene. And she said no. Having gone through to those lengths, again, I wasn't going to succumb to any form of legal threats, criminal or civil. And I just said, it's time to go. And Marta, I should just say this because a few offline phone conversations I've had, some people said, well, you must have a well-developed strategy. You must have already consulted with lawyers before you went ahead with publication. And the truth is that I never did. After receiving the letter from the minister, I was just completely fed up with the concealment and corruption that we're seeing right across the country. And I called you up and said, Martin, we're going to do it. So there was no, I never spoke to a lawyer. I don't have a grand strategy. I just said, it's kind of like Nike. The tagline for Nike is in terms of just do it. So I just thought, well, bugger the whole system. It's time that we, a lot of people asked us to put the tape out there. So I thought, well, who cares about these so-called consequences? Because there's a bigger important point that we have to make here, and that is you cannot deal with a problem if you hide the extent of the problem from the public, and that was the whole thing. So there's no grand strategy by John Adams. There's no written legal advice or verbal legal advice that I've ever received. I just said I just called you up, Martin, just said I've had enough, and we're going to publish it, and I'll deal with the consequences afterwards, and here we are.
Yeah, and I did say, John, that clearly there was a small risk we might even lose the IOTP channel as a result of it. But nevertheless, my belief was that what we were doing was important. And, you really underscored that this is a critical discussion about the culture and nature of politics and Australia more broadly. So that's why I felt it was important that we actually went through with those actions. And I have to say that I felt the ABC's response very late on the day was quite weak in its own right. Typical, perhaps, is what you might expect. So it'll be interesting to see whether they do more. But it's also, I think, worth saying that that created another bit of media coverage for you as well.
Yes, yes. Now, before we get to the subsequent media coverage, Martin, just so we can clear up some of the confusion that I can see in the YouTube comments for like over the last week. So at 4:58, I get the email from the ABC's lawyers, the head of legal disputes, and then it goes. And then at 5 o'clock, it goes up, and I remember calling at 5 o'clock just to see if everything had gone smoothly, and you had checked, and there was no disruption to the publication. So
Mm.
so from 5 o'clock Sydney time on the 13th of October up until 9:30, the video was spreading throughout YouTube and being pushed through the algorithm quite aggressively. So within 4 hours, we had roughly about 23,000 views on YouTube, lots of comments, lots of reactions to the horror of what the tape was. And then at night, and roughly about between 9:20 and 9:30 p.m., the tape was removed from YouTube. And you and I had discussed the possibility that YouTube may take action against the tape or against the channel. And so we had a plan B, and plan B was that you had sent me the file, and I downloaded it within half an hour and uploaded it to Twitter or X. So for those people in the audience who want to listen to the tape and they haven't listened to it, you can go to Twitter and look at, or what they call X now, and look at Adams Economics. That's my handle, at Adams Economics, and it's the top pinned tweet. And Martin, 23,000 views on YouTube, and as of today, we've had over 220,000 impressions on X. Lots of people have now copied the video. They've put it on Rumble, on BitChute, on Instagram, on a whole host of platforms. So every other platform has allowed the tape to play, except for YouTube. And 2 points to say on that one is that now on last Wednesday, I launched an appeal with YouTube to basically say that we disagree with the YouTube's decision to remove the video. And the grounds for removing the video was on the basis of it breached the child safety policy of YouTube. So we've launched an appeal. Now, I think, Martin, I think from what you've said to me in the past is that YouTube typically responds to appeals within 24 hours. And here we are 5 days on, and the appeal is still pending. So not sure what YouTube's going to do, but obviously it's now the cat is out of the bag and everyone has it. I mean, if every other platform says it's okay to publish, maybe YouTube will have second thoughts and maybe they'll say, well, it's okay to publish. So there's still a chance that it could come back onto the platform, but for now it's not. But particularly if people want to listen to it, you can go to my Twitter account and you can view the whole recording including our 5-minute introduction that is still up there on in terms of Twitter.
Absolutely. And the 222,000 on X is pretty amazing. And, it's still there. And good on Elon Musk. Free speech lives.
Indeed, indeed. Now, the other point I just want to make, Martin, is that so the ABC's threat to me last Monday was about injunctive relief. We're gonna get an injunction to stop you from spreading the word. Now, here we are, 1 week on. Everyone has it. In my view, there's no point of seeking any form of injunctive relief because, I mean, the cat's out of the bag. Everyone has it. The court can't stop the publication or the dissemination of the material because too many people have it right across the country. So again, there are some legal grounds that the ABC may wish to pursue, but in terms of injunctive relief, I think that ship has sailed. But Martin, if we go to the next article that was published by the Daily Mail on the following Tuesday, like in terms of last Tuesday, so because there was something quite important here. So obviously the title of the article is ABC issues stark legal threat against average Aussie who republished the most revolting segment the broadcaster has ever aired from 50 years ago. And obviously, one of the phrases that was used was "physically delicious," which is something we've discussed in the past. But the quote from the article, which sort of caught my attention, was this is what it says. It says, "quote An ABC spokeswoman said on Tuesday afternoon that the corporation would not comment on any potential legal action against Mr. Adams. The ABC contacted YouTube, and the video was removed from violating its community guidelines," she said. So, if people want to know why did YouTube remove it, it wasn't actually um, organic decision of YouTube. It was actually the ABC, i.e., the government, contacting a private company and saying, "Remove this content from your platform." So, again, yeah, I don't think it's appropriate for as a organ of the state to interfere in the to interfere in the private sort of communications of citizens because importantly, Martin, when the ABC contacted YouTube, they didn't say this was a breach of their copyright and they wanted the material removed because they control the material. They said it breached the YouTube's guidelines and they wanted it removed on that basis. So again, it should be up to YouTube to determine whether something is fit for purpose for their platforms and not for the ABC to tell YouTube whether material does or does not comply with their in terms of their child safety policy. So quite unfortunate that the ABC would think that it's appropriate that they actually intervene and tell YouTube what to do. But that's what's happened on this occasion. And yet, as we say, YouTube is still contemplating our appeal. And I don't know if the ABC attempted to contact X or some of the other platforms, but so far our video remains on X, hasn't been removed. And if there was any attempt by the ABC to contact Elon Musk and his team, those attempts have definitely failed.
Yeah, and I will ask that, just add, John, that when we put the post up, we did flag it as as you can do in terms of various categories of warning content, and we did publish a warning beforehand as well. So I don't think that we actually tripped over ourselves there at all. And this is very interesting that it was the ABC who intervened and effectively, said to YouTube, take it down. So that tells you something about the relationship between YouTube and the ABC, I guess, as well. And begs the question, well, who is controlling and who's actually setting the agenda and who is actually saying you can watch this, you can't watch that?
Yes, yes. I mean, look, I mean, if history tells us anything, I mean, authoritarian regimes, they're the ones that sort of tell citizens what they can say, what they can't say, what they can listen to, what they can't. So the fact that the government or an organ of the government would sort of try to prevent the public from learning the truth about historical events. We've criticized, Australians in general have criticized the Chinese government for censoring the events of Tiananmen Square from 1988. Historically, a lot of Chinese people don't know exactly what happened in Tiananmen Square because the Chinese government doesn't want their own citizens to know. And yet, the same criticism that we've imposed, that we've put on the Chinese, has actually happened here in Australia in the past week. So the ABC is no better than the Chinese Communist Party in terms of censoring historical embarrassing events in terms of their population. But here we are. We think we live in a free society, but we don't, and we have the ABC acting like a foreign totalitarian regime, and we're paying for this, and why we're paying for this, who knows? Now, but just so that anyone in our audience may be confused about the tweet itself, where I actually put up the video. If we couldn't put up the next slide, just so people can have a look to see what the tweet actually is. So this is the tweet, which is pinned to the top of my account. And I just said, after being banned by YouTube, In the Interest of the People presents the 1975 pedophile recording on the only one true free speech platform X. No matter the legal threats or the intimidation, the truth will prevail over darkness and evil, because protecting children is our highest duty. Spread this video to everyone you know. We must never surrender. So if you can find that tweet, you're going to find the video in terms of those who haven't had the chance to listen to it. But Martin, I'll be honest, a lot of people said that they couldn't finish it. A lot of people said they could only listen to 5-10 minutes, and it was too graphic and too gruesome to even finish the tape. I remember, to be honest, the first time I heard it, I couldn't finish the whole tape. But I think I listened to half of it, and I was just horrified and never heard anything like that in my life. So I think I had to come back a second time to finish the tape. But a lot of people just couldn't believe that something like that could go to air. Now, beyond the Daily Mail, there was more coverage of our efforts. There's a publication called Mumbrella that wrote a very good article about this. Quadrant magazine had a couple of columns. There was a few other publications as well. Sky News covered it. Gerald Henderson covered it as well. And this is the most, I think, important thing that I learned last week, which just shocked me to the core. Now, people may ask, how did I know about the pedophile tape? So I read about it in a column in the Australian by Gerald Henderson about 10 years ago. And because I read that, and this was a very sort of interesting article that Jared had wrote, it always was curious in the back of my mind about that tape. And then in 2023, I thought, well, I'm just going to act on to see if I can get the tape, and lo and behold, I get the tape. So now, because the tape went public last Monday, Jared Henderson actually contacted me, and we spoke on the phone a couple of times. And what was shocked me was, so Jared Henderson's been writing about this tape for 15 years, and he said to me he's never heard the tape. I said, what do you mean you never heard the tape? You've been writing about this for 15 years. I mean, on what basis did you write about these, write your columns? And he said there was a lot of media coverage from 1975 that he relied on to tell the historical story. But this is the key point, Martin. This is one of the key points that I want people to understand. According to Gerald Henderson, such was the outcry in 1975 that the ABC told the public in 1975 that the tape had been destroyed. So that's why Gerald Henderson never chased the tape, because in 1975 they said they destroyed the tape, and then in 2018, when Senator Abetz asked the ABC about the tape, the ABC said they don't have it. So what I learned last week from Gerald Henderson that I didn't fully appreciate is that this has been a 50-year secret hidden by the ABC. They said that they had destroyed the tape in 75, and in 2018 they said they didn't have the tape, and for 50 years they always had the tape. And it just so happens that in 2023 they gave me the tape, maybe by some miracle. And no doubt the individual at the ABC from the archives department who gave it to me probably didn't understand the significance of what was on the tape, and what the sort of his historical and cultural significance is. But this was a watershed moment for me, because if the ABC can lie to the entire nation for 50 years and says that something doesn't exist and it always did exist, well then it opens up the Pandora's box about secrets and corruption right throughout all levels of government in Australia. So when someone says to you in the future, this record doesn't exist, or that record doesn't exist, or this event never happened, etc. Well, we have a real life case study where something did happen. There was a recording, and the ABC lied on the record for 50 years to the public, to the Parliament, to everyone who bothered to ask. They had it all along. and it just so happens that I went along to get it, and they gave it to me, and now we can expose the real corruption. And Martin, a few months ago, I had a conversation with a former senator who was traveling through Wollongong, and he made the comment to me when we were talking about sort of corruption and anti-corruption bodies. He said that Australia is one of the cleanest countries in the world. And I sort of laughed. I said, no, we're one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And this is just another form of corruption. And this form of corruption is not the brown paper bag taking a bribe sort of corruption. This is process corruption, which we've talked about in the past. Straight out lying to Parliament, which is a very big deal. And this type of corruption, which doesn't necessarily involve the exchange of money, happens everywhere throughout the government. And and we're going to get to this in a couple of future episodes, Martin. I struggle, and I've struggled in the last 4 years as I've been working through a particular project to find anyone honest in the government. And I'm talking in the public service and the Parliament. Anytime I sort of dig around a particular issue, I keep on getting roadblocks, lies, obfuscation, concealment, and I just think that we have systemic, chronic corruption right throughout the government, and this is just the latest example that we've been able to categorically prove that the ABC had lied to the Australian people for 50 years.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, John, isn't it? That actually what we're highlighting here is an example of process corruption, which we believe is widespread across Australian government and beyond. And many people wouldn't want to recognise it, but it does exist. And unfortunately, it means that you can't necessarily trust a lot of what is said by government spokespeople, or indeed those ancillary agencies circulating. And you've got to ask why. Why is it? Well, it's because it's become institutionalized and just a normal course of doing business. And I said in the previous show, the crime was not doing it, but the crime was being found out about it. And what we've done through this, and what you've done, John, is to shine a spotlight. And I just want to put up this example. You said right at the end of this one, when you were talking about Gerard Henderson, I am probably the first person to get the tape out of the ABC in Australian history. And that is how important this is. I mean, this is really ripping the Band-Aid off and just showing how bad the wounds are under the surface.
One important thing, Martin, was that not only did we publish the tape and it got a lot of buzz on social media, and there was a number of online media articles, the issue was also raised in the New South Wales Parliament by the Honourable John Ruddick, MLC, who represents the Libertarian Party. Now, for the record, John and I are close friends. We've been friends since about 2012, well before John became a parliamentarian in the New South Wales Parliament. But he raised the issue across a couple of days, and he gave a speech. And I thought it'd be important that we play John's speech so that people can hear what was said in Parliament.
Honourable John Ruddick. Mr. Deputy President, I raise an issue that involves the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, paedophiles, the New South Wales Police and the Reverend Fred Nile. On the 14th of July 1975, the ABC aired a radio program called Lateline, not the later television show of the same name, but the original Radio National program. The name of the episode was Pedestry. 3 self-confessed pederasts were platformed to openly discuss and advocate their sexual relationship with teenage boys and children, some as young as 3. One of those boys was even invited to participate in the broadcast. This episode was a diabolical celebration of heinous criminal behaviour. The unnamed guests described the way they groomed children, how they befriended children, and how they hung around children, families, or lurked around playgrounds. The 45-minute program was a primer in evil. The ABC hierarchy at the time knew exactly what the broadcast was. They permitted it, they defended it, and the taxpayer paid for it. Then Chairman of the ABC, Richard Downing, appointed by the Whitlam government 2 years before the infamous episode, told the Sydney Morning Herald that, quote, in general, men will sleep with young boys. And on the 19th of July 1975, he wrote a letter to the Sydney Morning Herald urging Australians to understand pederasts. Shockingly, no one at the ABC reported these self-confessed offenders to police. No one offered to support the victims. Instead, that righteous duty fell upon the Reverend Fred Nile, who provided a copy of the interview to the then Police Commissioner, Fred Hanson, who said New South Wales Police would, quote, study the situation to see if the vice squad should be involved. And then radio silence. Nothing more was ever heard. I recently wrote to the police minister inquiring what came of the Reverend Niles' query and am awaiting a response. In 2016 and 2018, Senator Erica Betts raised this issue during a question on notice via the Senate Standing Committee on Environment and Communication. The ABC denied the existence of the interview at budget estimates. I understand they have been denying it for decades. The ABC misled Parliament. While they have recently been forced to acknowledge their error, it was without an apology or explanation of the prior disinformation. But a couple of years ago, John Adams simply emailed ABC Archives and they gave him the tape. Mr. Adams has now released the entire tape on social media, though, like my maiden speech, YouTube has at least temporarily banned it. Rather than show contrition for their past deeds, the ABC has since attempted to bully Mr. Adams with takedown orders and legal threats. There was no duty of care for the victims by the ABC, only ideological blindness. The victims, now in their 60s, were left unacknowledged and unassisted by the very institution they gave their sick abusers a platform. There cannot be one rule for taxpayer-funded elite and another for everyone else. The ABC must acknowledge its role in giving a platform to pedestry and pedophiles, must acknowledge its failure to report these disturbed guests to police and apologise to the survivors of child sex abuse, and must stop harassing whistleblower John Adams.
Yep, and that's very important, John. And actually, the other John did a really good job in terms of actually highlighting the issue there as well.
Absolutely. So Martin, as we bring this show to a close, we've done some very interesting and amazing work together since 2018. Hopefully the audience knows that we're not afraid to push the buttons where we need to push it. We've done things on bail-in and cash bans, and we've done ASIC inquiries, and we've done white-collar crime exposures and things of that nature. But here's another example of the work that serious people can do. We've exposed true evil inside the government. We've really tackled a very important issue, Martin. And one thing I will say about the significance of this tape, there's a documentary maker who only discovered us in the last few weeks, who has spent 18 months doing a documentary about pedophilia in New South Wales from back in the 1970s. He's interviewed over 40 victims, 25 on camera. He's looked at a lot of documentation. He could not believe his ears when he heard this tape. This tape is a lot of the victims, Martin, back in the 1970s were not believed when they said they had been molested by a pedophile. And a lot of this was swept under the carpet to either protect certain people or certain institutions like the church, etc. But why this tape is so significant is there's no conspiracy theory. It can't be dismissed. It can't be sort of people can't say that there's lack of evidence. We have people on the record in their own words describing what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. And this documentary maker who spent 18 months looking at this issue said that this tape is the most unique piece of media on pedophilia in Australia, and there is nothing like it in our country's history. So that's why it's significant, because obviously Senator Heffernan talked about 28 people on a list, and that list has been dismissed as not enough evidence. We don't know who the author of the list is. A lot of these people are historical and dead. Time to move on from the list, even though we've never really gone through the institution of the law to look at these historical issues. But this tape cannot be denied, and what these people said cannot be denied. And as we go forward, so as we wrap up the show, Martin, is the ABC, if they are going to take legal action, I'm waiting for it. I haven't been served any papers. And pretty much having spoken to a couple of lawyers, basically they said, wait until the ABC makes the first move, if they make any moves at all. So I will continue on until I receive some form of legal correspondence from a court or from or from the ABC. Now that's point one. Point two is there's obviously now the question of, well, what did happen when this tape was referred to the New South Wales Police back in 1975, and John Ruddick has written to the police minister seeking an official response as to what did happen, what did police do, and also, Martin, do we know who the people on the tape were? So we know the host, Richard Neville, and he passed away in 2016. But the 3 pedophiles and the teenager, we don't know who they are. And the question, in terms of seeking old police records is, did the police ever identify these people, and what were their story, and was there any punishment or consequences for their open confessions? So there are some historical things that we will seek to get from the New South Wales Police Service, and from the police minister, but that should probably come in the next 4 to 6 weeks. But as we go forward, we have more things to talk about corruption. I have quite a few different shocking stories that I want to talk about, including about in terms of sexual deviancy that's been happening in contemporary times. It's an important thing that we've done, and obviously, and the other thing I think, Martin, is that, and I've noticed this on social media, I think this was a very important cultural moment. I think a lot of people who, even if you were skeptical about the ABC, I think we've ripped off the Band-Aid, and people can see the ABC for what they really are. And I think for a lot of people, they'll never look at the ABC ever again in the same way. Very similar to how people in Britain can never look at the BBC in the same way after Jimmy Savile. So I think this has been a important issue about the topic of pedophilia and about protecting victims and informing the public about what's really going on. But also, it's a very important story about corruption, and I think we've really triggered a cultural moment that will last for decades to come.
Well, indeed, John, and kudos to you for driving the agenda. And I look forward to the next discussions about corruption. But I also just want to acknowledge the number of people who actually reached out in support of what you and indeed what we've done on the channel here. Thank you very much for all of those. And we will continue to talk and highlight and push for action in the interest of the people. Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of people. We'll see you next time.